Greetings, hello, and welcome to the After Action Report, a podcast from the Eden Project. I'm one of your hosts today. My name is Michael Stewart, and this is my friend, my co-host, and executive director of the Eden Project, Bren Briggs. That's the studio noise.
Yeah. That's supposed to be people clapping and cheering, right?
Which normally would if we had a studio audience, but it's just you and me today. Last week, Juliet Font. This week, just you and me, baby.
It feels different without that third person in here.
Oh, it does. Yeah. It does. I feel like when we have a guest in here, that it's more like I don't know. They can chime in, and we're a little more entertaining. And
right.
I'm just like, I kind of know you. Like, all right,
okay. That's just him again.
Just kidding, everyone. So listen, hey, glad that you're tuned in. We hope, and based on some of the feedback we've been getting from some of the folks who have been calling that number and reaching out to us, that you're enjoying what you're getting. If you haven't heard any of the previous episodes, please go back and check that out at your favorite place to get your podcasts. And then you'll get caught up and you'll see what we're talking about, some of the things you might have missed. But if you ever want to reach out and talk to us or ask questions or find out more about what the Eden Project does, eden-project.com, eden-project.com, or call or text 678-632-5383. That's 678-632-5383. We'll give that again a little bit later on in the podcast too. So, Bren, Mental Health Awareness Month.
That's right. Yep.
You know, this is a very, very... The subject can be, what's a good word? Not dark, but it's
sensitive. You know, this is one of those words that I hate using, but it can be very triggering. Mm-hmm. Trigger is one of those words that has been hijacked, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I think everyone understands what that means. So it truly can be one of those triggering type conversations.
Right.
But it doesn't need to be.
Exactly. And I think, you know, if you know me, I was going to say, if anybody else knows me, I try to bring a little levity, a little lightness into a lot of the things that we talk about. So it's just not all doom and gloom and things like that. But being that it is Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to be talking about mental health issues all through the next couple of, and probably afterwards as well, because that's kind of like what we do, specifically post-traumatic stress. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
And I love how you just said that. You said post-traumatic stress.
Left out that D.
You left out that D. And that's one of the things that I have over the years grown to hate when people put a D in there. And I know industry has it. The DSM-5 now has got the D on there. If you type in PTS, you probably won't find as much as if you Googled or searched PTSD. Mm-hmm. But personally, and there's a growing body of study that says it's not necessarily a disorder.
Right.
And who wants to say, man, I've got a disorder? But you can say I've got stress issues.
Right.
So personally, and probably for this show, we're going to leave the D off. We may say post-traumatic stress, or if you hear PTS, same thing. I just don't like the D.
PTSI, post-traumatic stress issues.
Yeah.
Or an E.
Anything except the D.
Post-traumatic stress euphoria. I don't, it's right. Well, just put your own word at the end of that.
Yeah.
Thing. No, I totally get that. I did read something many moons ago that said something. The reason why that was put on there is because not everybody has a reaction to things that they've had. Once things have happened, it's out of sight, out of mind. And so they looked at it. It was like, well, if it's not normal for everybody, then it's a disorder. And we just don't agree with that.
Yeah, so. But you know what? Not everybody laughs at my jokes, but they're still funny.
But to you. So we were talking a little bit off air about our first topic here, Megyn Kelly. Because you've been kind of checking her out on her podcast.
I've been checking her out on her podcast.
On her podcast, yep. And what was she talking about?
So and I realize, this is going to do another one of those. I'm going to take you on a long journey to kind of bring us back to the point. Bear with me, because I promise I'm going to bring us back to this. Megyn Kelly is not a little no-name nobody.
Right.
She's one of those big A-listers. She's been doing podcasting for a long time. She was a big personality on Fox News,
right,
and some other places too. So maybe a month or so ago, I was listening to one of her shows, and I've got news on in the background or a podcast or something going on all the time. So this particular one, she was talking to her guest If you want to look it up, I think it was episode 116, the Megyn Kelly show. But she was talking about UFOs, or they're calling them UAPs now.
Why? What?
Well, yeah, because like we all got used to what a UFO is, so the government said, let's change the name. Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Stop it. This is another example of government getting involved and screwing up everything.
Right.
Come on.
We just got used to UFO, and now they want to go ahead and change it.
Unidentified flying object.
Yes.
It's an object that's flying. Yeah. Oh, come on. Silliness.
But
silly.
Mainstream Megyn Kelly is talking about UFOs. So to me, to bring this back to what we're talking about, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. I think mental health should be just as mainstream and easy to talk about as UFOs have become. If Megyn can talk about UFOs, we can make mental health just as common and easy to talk about.
Well, exactly. And I think Megyn can talk about anything, and most people will enjoy it. I mean, she got 171,000 followers on formerly Twitter. It's X.
Wow, yeah.
I don't know how many on her podcast, but it's quite a few people.
Yeah.
And we want to be we want 171,000 followers one day that can listen to us.
We're close.
And you got to remember that this podcast is designed for veterans originally, because that's the background of the Eden Project, but it's open to everybody, and we're finding that it's more than just veterans that are tuning in, so everybody can get something out of this. So we're going to talk about this today and let you understand that it's not uncommon, right?
That's right. In today's topic, although vets and first responders are generally our target audience, like you just said, this particular topic is not specific to the veteran community or first responder community. Research says post-traumatic stress is actually, it's a common issue. Again, I'm not going to use the word disorder, but it's a common condition. So in their world, common is 10%. So on average, 1 in 10 people are going to deal with post-traumatic stress in their lifetime. If they've ever had or been subject to or been involved in a traumatic event, that number goes to 30%. So 1 in 3 people in their lifetime, if they've ever had a traumatic event, are going to deal with post-traumatic stress issues at some point.
And let me point out right off the bat that Bren and I are not medical professionals, although I was a vet technician in an animal hospital many years ago.
Yeah.
Anyone dealing with PTS or know someone who is should seek medical professional. I mean, we're glad to give you our opinion on things. We do look up some facts and numbers and things like that, but outside of that, we're not the medical people. So don't reach out to us for that.
Yeah, you can reach out to us to get help, to point you in the right direction to find somebody. And like Michael said, we're not the medical professionals that can answer everything. Dealing with this takes time, takes work, takes practice, takes a professional. What we're going to do is, maybe offer information of what to look for, and maybe some things of high level things of how to deal with post-traumatic stress. But if you are somebody, or if you know somebody with issues like we're about to discuss, please either call us and we'll connect you with somebody, or look it up in your local community and find a medical professional.
So let's start with talking about what exactly is post-traumatic stress.
Sure. So a definition of post-traumatic stress, it's a common health condition that can develop after a traumatic event. I mean, the definition is as basic and common as that. Now, what's a traumatic event, right? Or what does it look like in different people? And
that could be anybody. And again, this is not just a veteran kind of thing.
Yeah.
Most people think when say PTS, war. I've come back from the war and I'm having some issues with that. And while that's a big thing, it's a huge thing. Talked to a couple guys in my church that are dealing with that. But it's more than that. It's an all people, any ethnicity, nationality, culture, any age, and any type of event too, like natural disasters. I know people who have gone through hurricanes, and they're like, they don't want to, that just freaks them out. When the winds start, there's somebody locally here that I know, the winds start blowing, get in the bathtub, and so.
Could you imagine being on vacation? Remember a couple of years ago, they had that tsunami in, I don't know if it was the Philippines or someplace. Could you imagine, being on vacation, a paradise for you, and waking up in the middle of the night and having, the hotel and everything wash away?
I could see where that would affect you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rape, sexual assault, historical trauma, terrorist acts, serious accidents. I have a good friend who just had the anniversary of a car accident that he was in, and his best friend was killed. So, here we are a year later, and his body just reacted to it. It's almost, it's the mind. And so it's all types of definitions as far as that.
All things that can happen. Yes, it can happen and does happen at a higher rate to military and first responders, but it's not exclusive to military and our first responders.
Exactly.
So the one thing that we talked about earlier that if we want to, maybe dig in a little bit on this one, that some people may not, think of as a stressful or trauma creating event, bullying. In high school, we talked about it, but I changed what I'm thinking. I was going to mention their name, but I'll leave their names out. But I was in like 5 different schools in 4 years, and the school that I transferred to when I finally finished high school, 7th grade, was a hell year for me. I was bullied all the rest of 7th grade and on into 8th grade a little bit, and then things changed after that. But it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And you kind of talked about that a little bit too. It's nowadays people have phones and they're not just physically, I was beat up in gym class all the time, which I'll talk to you guys later after this.
Jane Doe. We'll talk about Jane Doe. Oh, John Doe.
Yeah. Right.
And it's the same. It was the same thing for me, Bren. I mean, you said 7th and 8th grade. I came from California. I was there for my first 10 years of my life. Ended up in just outside of Mobile, Alabama.
Wow.
And so you went from like LA to LA, Lower Alabama, Los Angeles. And I was not like the other people in my school.
Go figure.
Yeah.
California to LA.
Blonde hair, long hair. I was cute, and then, so that didn't sit well with some of
course not.
The gentlemen of the schooling area that back then. And so it was quite an interesting several years. And it went up until like at least in my junior year. Once I made the lead in the junior play and I was in marching band, I was accepted by then. But it took, good 4 years at least.
But it's too bad we have to, and I say we collectively because it's us from when we were in school. Kids are experiencing it now. Mm-hmm. So that's the type of trauma that can create post-traumatic stress that we're talking about. And we're going to go through what it looks like. We're going to go through some things that studies have shown help. But again, at the end of the day, if you think you're there or if you think you know somebody, seek professional help. But we'll talk about, kind of what that looks like with bullying or other trauma.
And it's amazing because things today are so different. I mean, here we are, 40 or how old we are years after after high school, we can still talk about it, and I can still remember the feeling in your stomach or the gut or just those emotions. Right. So even with today in the internet and cell phones and texting and the cyberbullying and things, and suicide rates are more prominent than ever.
Yeah.
And so things like that people have to deal with. And so back to your point, if you're dealing with this or someone, and not just about the bullying. I mean, if someone's bullying and you need to stop it.
That was a good example.
But for anything like that, reach out. Let us help you be we'll be a source to finding some help wherever you are.
Yep. This is not a brand new thing. It's called post-traumatic stress now, but it's been around people for as long as probably people have been around. Military-wise, like World War I, World War II-ish, it was called shell shock. Then it was called combat fatigue. I don't know I don't know that they had labels really too far back other than labeling vets. Mm-hmm. So I think we're about the same age.
Maybe.
Did you watch TV or anything specific like in the 80s when you were a teenager?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a particular show that I loved when I was a teenager. You ever watch Magnum PI?
Of course. Everybody watched Magnum PI.
I'm wondering if teenage boys watched it for a different reason than, other people. But when I remember in the 80s, when I watched it, Magnum was awesome.
Yeah.
But the scenery, if I need to go into any detail on that, you know what I mean by the scenery. As a teenage boy, I really enjoyed it in the 80s. After spending 28 years in the military, I've been watching or rewatching some of the older shows. And with the experience now, going back and watching Magnum, it's a completely different feeling for me, because what I'm watching and seeing some of the episodes, Magnum was filmed like maybe 5 years after the Vietnam War ended. So a lot of those episodes have to do with him having flashbacks, or TC or Rick or whatever, showing their military experience. They didn't use the word post-traumatic stress, but watching it now with that lens, it's crazy to look at what they were talking about experiencing. So it's not a new issue. People have covered it and it looked differently years past.
Right.
But these are things that have been around. We just have more tools, more training, more education, so we know how to identify it, and thank God how to deal with it.
Right, exactly. You mentioned flashbacks. PTS involves symptoms like flashbacks, anxiety, negative thoughts, beliefs, hypervigilance, and more. People with PTS have intense, intrusive thoughts, feelings, things related to particular events in the past. But there's also stress responses too, right?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff, matter of fact, I'd say all of that stuff is out of our control. It happens to us, and we're not conscious that it's happening or going on or about to happen. Mm-hmm. The good news is we can do something about it. You mentioned intrusive thoughts, for example. That's one of the 4 categories of the type of symptoms. Intrusive thoughts are going to happen. They're going to pop into your head, mm-hmm. completely out of your control with them coming into your head. The good thing about that, though, is you can control what happens next. So you can either let it keep happening, or you can, like the bully. We talked about bullies. How do you deal with a bully?
Throat punch.
You face them.
Just kidding.
We're going to throat punch those intrusive thoughts. I might start using that, because I like that visual image. You have to address a bully head on. You have to address these intrusive thoughts head on. If you let the thoughts continue, mm-hmm. they're just going to get stronger and stronger, and you end up becoming weaker and weaker and falling back and losing your life mm-hmm. to these intrusive thoughts. This is one of those comments and conversation points that gets me in trouble, because people who have been dealing with this, a good deal of their life, will push back and say, I can't control the thoughts. I can't deal with this. Whatever the reasons are. Yes, that stuff is happening. However, you absolutely can. I know that was loud. You absolutely can control what happens next.
You can.
Yeah.
I mean, and I totally believe that. And anybody who says, well, you can't, it's just you haven't been presented the right way, or the right tools, or the method in order to learn how to control those thoughts.
That's right. Or you didn't know that you had that power. Mm-hmm. I mean, you play golf. Wouldn't it be nice to have a golf coach to watch your swing and say, oh, hold your club this way, or stand that way, or whatever?
Sure.
With post-traumatic stress, that's what counselors do. They will walk you through how to get over and get past and deal with those thoughts, because the thoughts are going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially like, for example, if you're a Christian or follow God and reading the Bible, it'll tell you, take those thoughts captive, because everybody's going to have those thoughts that aren't good. It's what you do with those thoughts afterwards, because, again, everybody has, well, where'd that come from?
Yes.
But being able to control that, and you can. And if you are not able to, then you just need to be shown some of the tools and the methods on how to do that.
That's the power. So, if someone's listening and they decide they're going to tune out right now, if you tune out and say, and only take this away with you, that's fine. Please listen to the rest of it. But this is the one thing that you can take away and absolutely take control of those intrusive thoughts by owning it and controlling it. I remember as a kid, I used to have really, really bad nightmares. I don't know if I talked about this before or shared this, but up until like 5th grade, I would have horrible, horrible nightmares. I don't know how I learned this or even where it came from, but I learned, again, I'm 5th grade, because I knew where I lived at different points. We moved around a lot as a kid. So during this time, I remember having these dreams, and however I did it, I'm sure it's by accident. There was no counselor at that time that was going to walk a kid that age. But I turned this monster into a clown. So
That's even scary.
Well, for some people it is. And I thought about this. I'm thinking, hey, some people are more afraid of clowns than they are monsters. But this was a good thing. I liked clowns, and it was a funny, happy, one of those good clowns.
Hi, everybody.
That guy.
Okay.
Instantly the dreams went, the nightmares went away.
Okay.
So the nightmare came back, and then it wasn't nearly as bad. And so I was able to go from nightmare monster to clown. Well, then about a year later, I thought, man, I like scary movies. I don't. These are free scary movies, and I don't get them anymore. But the point isn't, hey, clowns are good and whatever is bad. It's the fact that we do have the ability to take control of our thoughts, and through that we can get rid of those intrusive thoughts.
Right. So you went from get out into
get out. Do your clown voice.
Hi, everybody.
And say get out. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Get out.
There you go.
So what are the 4 categories of symptoms?
So intrusive thoughts, we just talked about that, and it's thoughts you don't have any control over, involuntary memories, the nightmares like I just mentioned.
Right.
Some people have flashbacks of a traumatic event. So, I think you mentioned earlier about a car accident.
Yeah, about the guy.
If someone has one event in their life and that's the thing that's causing them issues, they may have flashbacks of that issue and just can't get over it. So that's one of the intrusive thought in that category. The next one's avoidance. A lot of people who deal with post-traumatic stress will tend to avoid either people or situations that bring up that unwanted thought.
Exactly. Case in point, the accident I was talking about, they do everything they can to avoid that intersection where the accident happened. They will drive around different roads to go where they need to go. Yeah.
The funny thing, or not funny haha thing, but the thing about avoidance, your body doesn't actually let things go. You may not be addressing it, but it's still in the back of your head. And what happens when you plant a seed in the ground? That seed germinates and it grows, and eventually it's going to grow in ways we don't want it to grow.
Right.
So our avoidant behavior can actually cause or make the problem worse than if we deal with it head on, like the bully.
Exactly. And if you are familiar with a lot of other methods of teaching like that, you're designed to talk about it. If you're having marriage problems, you have to talk about it. If you're having problems at work, you have to talk about it. And so it's the same thing with this. Many, many times you have to talk about it. You have to bring it up. You have to kind of relive it. That's one of the main ways to help you overpowering it.
That's it. Yeah. Brene Brown talks about, she's got a phenomenal series about shame. And she talks about addressing shame, and shame can't live in the light. What I've seen for the last 8 years that I've been doing this and dealing with vets and first responders, they carry this shame and this guilt and all this stuff with them. But the minute they let it go, especially in a group setting, the minute they let it go, there's nobody judging them. There's nobody saying, oh my God, that's awesome. No black creature comes out to the middle of the room and attacks anybody.
Right.
It's gone.
Right.
And I'll say every time, but virtually every single time that people let something like this go or address it, they're instantly better. They almost look like they've lost 10 pounds or they've got 10 years younger because they've let this stuff go. So avoiding things rarely leads to a good end result. Getting it out and addressing it generally always does make things better.
That rolls right into number 3, changes in thinking and mood.
That's right.
Some of that stuff is like the ongoing fear, horror, anger, like you mentioned, guilt, shame. But interestingly, memory loss, their mind will forget particular things that happen, aspects of a traumatic event, or even the ongoing negative and distorted thoughts and feelings about yourself or others and situations like that.
Yeah. The part, so from that, the part that was real personal for me is the inability to experience positive emotions. So, we've talked about this before, and I've had there's different kinds of trauma events. There's your single event, like a car accident. There's your combat trauma that happens over and over and over. Or sadly, there's, kids live in abusive homes, and that trauma is not a one-time deal.
That's could be years and years.
Tragically, it's years and years and years. So what ends up happening is that trauma takes over, and they don't know how to experience life. The example that I use, what I've often talked about is life is just black and white. It's not color to me. There's not the vibrant, really awesome things that most people see. It's just black and white. And a lot of that is because of years and years of unaddressed dealing with or not dealing with post-traumatic stress.
Right. On some of those other things in that same topic, feeling detached from others, not enjoying activities that you once did, and a lot of times you're denying yourself a good, healthy life.
That's right.
Oh, I'm not going to do this anymore because of this.
Right. And the sad part, there's another term that goes along with this. It's secondary post-traumatic stress. So you're dealing with an issue or not dealing with an issue, but you've got this trauma in your life, and the people around you are affected by it too. You just now said you're feeling detached from others. Well, if someone else is attached to you and you're not able to reciprocate, imagine the feeling that they get. They're going to feel unwanted, unloved, disconnected, and maybe develop resentment and anger and fear. So it's not just a one-person issue. This, especially the things we're talking about now, has a profound effect on the people around us.
Exactly. And number 4.
Irritability, anger outburst, reckless or self-destructive behavior, being easily startled. Someone drops a book behind you and it's just a book. Yeah. But for the rest of the day, these people have this fight or flight, this buildup of, I'll call them toxic chemicals, but this buildup of chemicals and stuff in their body because of that sudden startle. And the other part, or last part in there is problem concentrating or sleeping. Everybody I know that has post-traumatic stress deals with concentration issues and absolutely deals with poor sleep habits. So that's what post-traumatic stress is and what it looks like. So if you can identify with any of this stuff, or if you know someone, please either reach out to us, reach out to somebody. We're not the experts that are gonna cure this for you. There's no magic wand of post-traumatic stress, but there are people like maybe the guest we're going to have on in a couple of weeks can really talk one-on-one through this stuff and help people out.
And if you want to reach out to us, a number you can call or text 678-632-5383, 678-632-5383, or visit Eden-project.com. That's Eden, EDEN-project.com.
Yeah. So we did talk a little bit about what is a traumatic event. I think you did a good job covering what the events are. Car accidents, natural disaster, tragically abuse as a kid, or
physical, mental, emotional abuse.
Absolutely.
All of those. Bullying, sudden death of a loved one could be something too. Some people just have a hard time recovering from.
Those are things that, those are things that happen to people, and not everybody's going to respond to a situation the same way. And I like to liken it to. I joked earlier about people. I think my jokes are funny, but not everybody does. You ever go to a movie and you're laughing hysterically and no one else is, or vice versa? They're laughing and you're not. That's how post-traumatic stress is. You and I can be in the exact same thing, and one of us is traumatized by it. The other one walks away and says, "No big deal." We don't know why. We just know that it affects people differently. What we do know, though, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the physiological is first, but the very next step is safety. So if you don't feel safe, if trauma has affected your basic core, your ability to connect, your ability to self-actualize, everything else is going to be affected. So addressing this or recognizing it and then getting help is pretty important. Some people have, like we said, one issue. If you have a car accident, that's a one issue, maybe a acute stress, or maybe a acute, again, there's that disorder word, but acute, it happens once and you deal with that one issue. Sometimes it lasts forever, the dealing with part. But another example or another kind of post-traumatic stress is complex post-traumatic stress. That's one that we talked about before, that if the one example we've mentioned a few times is like child abuse. That's not a one-time issue. Some of these kids have gone through abuse for years and years and years. That's the one that's it's chronic and harder to deal with and harder to get over. Still able to get over. The same tools apply. It just may take a little bit longer because it's so ingrained in who they are. So let's talk about moral injuries.
Okay.
That's what I see more than anything else, because one of the things that, again, in the veteran space or the first responder space is they see things or they do things that are against their moral fiber, moral training, or moral upbringing. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we're taught killing is bad, killing is wrong, right? Hurting other people is bad or it's wrong. So if you grow up your life, you're 18, 20 years old, and all your life that's what you're told, then all of a sudden you're exposed to killing or murder, or you've had to do some things that are contrary to what you believe. That's where the moral injury comes in. Your physical body's not injured. Like in a car accident, you'd have whiplash.
Right.
But the moral part of, the character, everything you believe and know to be true is what's damaged. That's the part of post-traumatic stress that people can't see, but has got to be dealt with at some point. I use the example of Batman.
Okay.
You know the story of Batman.
With his parents, yeah.
When he was, they were coming back from a movie or something, and someone tries to rob him. Dad's standing up. Mom and dad get killed.
The Joker.
Yeah. The rest of his life is affected by that one event. So Batman used his post-traumatic stress, well, depending on what side you feel about or how you feel about Batman, he used that traumatic event to be good. Was Batman a good guy?
I think so. It just depends on who you look at. I mean,
right.
He was trying to do right, wrong, and
yep. But everything, the rest of his life was born out of that one incident. Not everybody can take a traumatic event and turn it around and use it that way. But that's an example of how post-traumatic stress, a situation can affect people. And like we said earlier, it's unclear why a situation will help you or affect you the way it does, and maybe someone else not at all. So we did talk a little bit about the physiological parts of what post-traumatic stress can do to your body. It increase your heart rate, and we've heard of the fight or flight response.
Oh yeah. That's a big thing with a lot of things in life.
That's right. Your heart rate goes up. It changes your blood pressure. You mentioned the startle effect. I mean, all those things are physiological things that are going on inside of you that when they're happening, we have little or no control until we do. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Studies have shown that it also, post-traumatic stress changes the chemistry makeup and the physical makeup of our brains, which is weird.
Exactly. Well, I know serotonin comes into this. Serotonin is a big thing when people who suffer from depression have a lack of serotonin, or their brain doesn't produce as much. And so there's healthy things that you can do. Cinnamon. Did you know that cinnamon helps with serotonin creation? Vitamin E. There's a whole list of vitamins and things that you can take to help those kind of things too. Don't ask me how I know it, but I know it.
So they've measured the people going through this. They've measured their brain, and the size of the hippocampus changes. The amygdala. Amygdala. I was going to say amygdala, but I thought that's not right.
It looks like Amy G. Dalla.
Yeah.
Amygdala.
So parts of the brain physically change in size because of post-traumatic stress. So what do we do about this, right? We talk about, okay, here's what it is. We've seen examples. We've laid out that, it's not just a military thing. It can happen to anybody. So I think what people really want to hear is, now what? Mm-hmm. Now I've either identified that I have it, or I've identified somebody that has it. Now what do we do?
Now what do we do?
Yeah,
and remember, whatever you hear from us at this point on, we're not medical professionals.
Right.
And we're offering our services is the Eden Project, which you've done for many years. That's what the Eden Project is all about: is helping veterans, active military, first responders, in any type, in many walks of life, but mainly for mental health reasons and things of what we're talking about today. So you definitely, we have the resources for that, but we're not doctors who can say, take 20% milligrams of,
right. That's a good point. I look at this, as we're connectors. If identify the issue, and then we can connect people to the resources that they need. Mm-hmm. So that to me is how I would use this if I was listening. Is holy cow, I know a person with those issues. Now, how do I connect and help? So probably the one thing, if you're talking about someone who you know, don't judge them. This is something a lot of people deal with. Walking away from them, pointing fingers, judging, never good responses. Mm-hmm. Maybe having empathy and being there, listening for them. That's one of the things that the studies have shown is the number one best tool. Talking about it and listening and just getting it off your chest. Obviously, you want to talk with somebody who is a listener, not going to judge and like, oh my God, that's horrible, or you act that way. Come on, get over it.
Right.
Those aren't good responses.
Never works. Cheer up.
But so some listening. Obviously, talk therapy is one of the things with a skilled professional that knows how to guide and walk through is number one. Every study I've read, every thing that I've read and done over the past 8 or 10 years all say the same thing. Talking is number one. Mm-hmm. Talking to a trained professional, obviously, is the best way to do it. But some other non-traditional type options that I've used and that I've worked with other veterans.
What?
Stellar ganglion block. Have you heard of that?
It sounds like something I don't want.
It definitely is not. So, kind of in a high level explanation, it's a shot to the base of your neck. Yeah, they put some type of I say a chemical, but they put a shot of something in there to the stellar ganglion, and I felt almost instant relief from my post traumatic stress symptoms within a couple hours of having this procedure done. So I slept great for months, and then I went through another round of the treatment. But it's one of those, you have to get qualified and obviously see a medical professional. This is not something you're going to Google and say, "Hey, honey, put this shot in the back of my neck." Exactly. and take the acupuncture is another one that is. There's a lot of real studies, peer-reviewed studies that show where acupuncture, the right kind of acupuncture, is going to help.
I know a lot of people, acupuncture could be hit or miss with some people.
Yeah.
I kind of was that way until I went and had something done. And it was, I remember I was having some issues with my leg and some like nerve pain and going down my leg. And someone said, have you tried this? No, I'm willing to try anything at this point. Went and I was in there for maybe 15 minutes. They came back in afterwards, and I stood up, and the first words out of my mouth were, "What kind of sorcery is this?" What are you? And it was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing. Also, some people that I know who have issues with congestion and allergies, and they do some things in your face and around the neck area and stuff like that. Boom, instantly gone. It's incredible.
I wish I understood more, how the mechanics, the science behind it. But acupuncture can cure or solve. I don't know if cure is the right word, but it can address a lot of issues, and this is definitely one of them that it's been known. Finding a good support group is
finding
another
your
one.
tribe.
That's right. Hey, we should do a show on that. And of course, like we've said a few times, follow your treatment plan. Find a medical professional and then listen to what they say. It generally, post-traumatic stress didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be cured overnight. It's going to take time to deal with it and get it out of your system and work it. So find that medical professional and listen to what they say and the things that they do.
Yeah, and I think that kind of rolls right into things like take care of yourself. You got to eat right. It's no secret that this world, especially the United States, is jacking you up with processed foods and stuff that doesn't belong in the foods. I mean, you can look at the ingredient list on so many things in other countries versus ours, and ours is just ridiculously, it's just stupid.
Right.
And so, but eat healthy.
Yep.
Get some exercise, get rest. They
Sunshine.
tell you to avoid caffeine. Hey, I love my coffee. I don't know what, but nicotine, that stuff can make it worse for some people. They talk about don't self-medicate, things like, alcohol, drugs, and things like that. Find that support group and find other ways. The biggest thing for me would be to learn about PTS. If you're not familiar with what it's all about, obviously Google it, or if you want to learn more and you want to reach out to us, we can certainly talk to you about that too.
Yeah. The biggest thing, not the biggest thing, but just being unaware. People who go through this and the people around them end up looking at like it's leprosy or something that's going to contaminate them or make things worse. But if you research it like you just said, and if you understand it, it can be dealt with, and people end up stronger on the other side once they know how to deal with it than those who don't deal with it at all.
Exactly. So when someone you love has PTS, they may seem like a different person than what you used to know.
Right.
Angry, irritable, withdrawn, depressed. You just have to remember that PTS can significantly strain the emotional and mental health of a loved one, whether it's your spouse, a child, a parent, friend. But knowing how to react to this and learning how to do that too is crucial.
Yeah, and it's not walking on eggshells. So don't misunderstand or not you, Michael, but other people listening. It's not about walking on eggshells around that person. It's understanding what it looks like and how to deal with it and work through it, because you can get better on the other side if you use the things we've talked about. You seek a medical professional, you work in peer groups or something. But like the golf lessons that we talked about at the beginning of the show, it's not a once and done kind of thing. Your golf coach is going to work with you consistently, and over time, that golf game, that golf swing, whatever, is going to get better. The same with this. It takes time.
Yeah, you got to give yourself that amount of time, because it is going to continue to go on. So these are all wonderful things that we've been sharing with you, and of course, there's a bazillion more things that you could probably learn and find on your own too.
Yep. So what I like about our show and what we're able to do, how I look at this, we're introducing people to topics, to concepts, to things that they may not have understood or knew before. And this isn't the end all be all. This is the starting point for people to get the help, to look for information, to recognize, oh my God, that's what I'm dealing with. That's me typing, by the way. Looking something up and then saying, man, I didn't realize that's what I was dealing with. I also didn't realize I can get better from this. That's how I see what we do.
Right. Exactly. So if you want to know more about this, or gosh, there's anything else that's on your mind that might, relate to the Eden Project and what we do, feel free to check us out, eden-project.com. That's eden-project.com, or call and text 678-632-5383, 678-632-5383.
Yeah. I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate, Michael, you working with me on this. And like I've heard from other shows, if you like what we're doing, like it and share it.
Yeah, please let other people know in your social media too, as well, in all forms.
Yeah.
We'll have guests coming up in the future that we'll discuss more on PTS. But we'll also have other guests that are going to be talking about other things as well.
Lots of other topics.
And keep in mind, everything that we do, while we certainly are dedicated to veterans, first responders and such, most of our topics and the things that we talk about can affect and play into the lives of anybody, no matter who you are.
Well, they say it here. Everybody.
And by the way, speaking of everybody, we are recording this episode at Rome at Trillith in Georgia. Hey, y'all.
Yeah. Come on back now.
So, and we're grateful that you've taken some time out of your busy life to be here with us and be part of our podcast. Like we said, share it with other people. If you haven't caught some of the other episodes and you like what you're hearing now, go
back and get them.
Yeah, go get those, and we'll have more be coming up. Bren, thank you so very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Everybody have a wonderful day, and thank you for tuning in to the After Action Report, a podcast from the Eden Project.